Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Holding Heritage Unspoken Stories. My name is Holly, and I am here today with Jacky and Julian, my friends and my core teammates on this project. Today, we are going to be going through a few memorable clips from each episode. We're going to be talking about the process and the journey. So if you like any of these clips that you see here today, please take the time to go and actually watch the full episodes. There are so many moments that we weren't able to include in this particular conversation. So we would be really grateful for that. So I want to start off with, let's do a quick introduction of who we are, what our role is in this series, and you can talk about how I coerced you into, into helping me on this project.
So I'm Jacky. I am the live translator and subtitle translator for the series. I've been friends with Holly since we were in university, and I heard of this project through Holly when she posted a story.
Actually, it was funny because I had posted a story and I was like, oh, I'm looking for a translator who speaks Chinese and Vietnamese. And so Jacky was actually like, oh, I wish I could speak Vietnamese so that I could help you. And truthfully, at that time, nobody had reached out to me. So I was like, no, it's fine. I would love to. You don't have to speak Vietnamese. We'll do it like mostly in Chinese. And I didn't actually think that you're serious about wanting to, you know, because we have a very like jokey relationship, especially in university. And like, I honestly wasn't sure if it would be something that you were interested in. So yeah, what was actually going through your head?
No, I just thought it sounded like a meaningful project, right? And I've heard your podcast before, right? So I kind of know the themes. And I thought it would be great if I could contribute. Only thing I worried about was just not being, you know, adequate enough of a translator for the series.
Had you met any of Holly's family before that?
Just her parents at that point, and her brother, but not any of the extended family.
Yeah. But now you're literally part of the family.
It's surprising. Like you fit in so well, and like you know so much about them, and
yeah, honestly, I mean, I think I think they like me more than they like Holly.
Yeah, you know, at this point, you're invited to all of the family gatherings. Yeah. Okay, Julian, what about you?
So I'm Julian. I'm the director of photography on this project, and so Holly reached out to me because she had seen that I had worked on another STORYHIVE project recently, and so she wanted to see if I'd be interested in this. And I'd been a big fan of Holly since university days, and you know, I'd follow her podcast as well. So you know, the confluence of timing and everything just made so much sense, and it was such a meaningful project for me as well that, you know, I really wanted to share this, and it was great that I could kind of increase how much creativity I had with the cinematography side of things. So it was really rewarding.
And like, I've told you this multiple times, but like when I was thinking about pitching the project, like before I even got the grant, and I was like, who could I reach out to if I did get the grant? You were the first person that came to mind, because when we first met, I mean, you were photographer for like BD and all of the events and stuff, and then ever since then, like seeing all of your film and photography stuff, it was like, oh, I feel like you would do such a good job. And even after our first filming day, I was like, I'm so lucky to have such a good team. Like I feel like we just work really well together.
Yeah, I think we did so much, like as mostly a 3-person team, and you know, a couple extras now today, but yeah, I think we all stepped up so much. Like Holly, you stepped up with editing, like picking up Final Cut Pro,
which I really enjoy now.
It's amazing how fast you picked it up, because most people like
it's iMovie and GarageBand.
Perfect
in my YouTube days, you know, when I wanted to be a YouTube star. Okay, so after I told you about the project, like, how did you actually feel about it? Obviously, I have a very deep passion for it. I'd done the podcast. Were you passionate about the actual content of it? And
I mean, it was firstly it was relatable, right? Being an immigrant myself, and then just having the East Asian background, knowing that my parents weren't very open emotionally growing up. I mean, they provided for us the best that they can, but they weren't very, I guess, very vocal about their emotions and what they were going through. They like to keep the more negative things to themselves. They
Which
don't
is
want
the norm,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I feel like that's the norm, but that's how my family grew up. So I thought, you know, a conversation between generations was a really interesting idea, and that's something that I have been striving towards in my personal life as well. So I thought it was very meaningful. But I thought one of the challenges going in would be, you know, how easy or how hard it would be to get, you know, some of the participants to open up, really, right? Especially on camera.
Yeah.
And which was surprising to me because during the process, some were a lot more willing than
Yeah.
I thought, right?
That's what I thought too. I thought it would be a lot of like prompting.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was a lot of like, we just sit back and let them like express. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like our culture is so good at hiding things and being quiet and being maybe too humble sometimes. And, you know, these stories of coming to Canada, like I've experienced through my parents as well. And, you know, there's stories that I've kind of half heard through different grandparents, but you never really get the full experience. And, you know, having listened to the podcast, I was so inspired to like find out how you're able to start the conversation, make people feel comfortable to share, you know, like the story that they have for their whole family. And, you know, maybe I could bring that into my own family, maybe not, but like it's very wholesome to like feel like, oh wow, you know, we can, you know, bring a dad and a daughter together, even though they've had so many conversations. It's like things that they never had a chance to say.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some of the actual cuts. So it was really hard to choose. Like one thing going through and like pulling clips for us to talk about that I noticed was we've done a lot. Like there was a lot of conversations that we had and there's a lot of really awesome moments. So if you're watching and you like any of these clips, please go in and actually watch the full conversations. And even then they're not the full conversations. Like we couldn't possibly put the whole conversation in there. So the first one that I want to go through was our first filming weekend, which looking back now, it was like a lot to bite off. So
when was
we were
that?
like, that was last September, so September 2024. And we were very ambitious. We're like, we're gonna film our first 3 episodes. We're gonna go and travel to the interviewees who, the first one was my paternal grandma, so my mama, and then we had a close family friend of mine with his dad, as well as my cousin and her dad. And so we did all 3 of those in 2 days. And it was awesome to see like how we worked together. I was a little bit nervous, but it worked out so well. So, okay, the first clip from me and my grandma's episode that I want to kind of show you is this one here.
今日呢講啊，大家來到啲，大家安全真係好彩，大家安安全全，能健健，又放心啊！14先男男女女，我男。14隻，有2隻得16隻，得隻做啊！哇，真係好開心啊！咪咁開心。一諗咁，唉，數啊點咩？依家都腦都冇用啦，係咁試係咁諗嘅，腦冇用啦，咁諗。一諗翻嚟，依家都冇諗咁多啊。同政府都歡喜喜，得嗰啲仔先聽講，我就好開心啦，就心熱心足啦。依家冇諗咁多啦。
So the reason why I chose this one was honestly when I was having the conversation, I had no idea that that's what she said, because I didn't understand like that first sentence. And then when you sent through the translation and she was like, oh, I'm now useless and like I don't know what to do with myself essentially. It was very surprising to me at first when I read it, but then after thinking about it, I'm like, I'm sure so many, especially grandparents and grandmothers, they're really the backbone of the reason why they came, feel this way. And yeah, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts because I feel like I can't even really put it into words.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
me neither.
It's the honest, you know, feelings of a person in their, you know, later stages of life. And it's definitely, you know, it's so difficult to share and hear, but I think it's just a part of the process of aging and, you know, the joys of seeing your grandchildren, you know, do these amazing things and also feel like, okay, I've done what I need to do. You know, that's the circle of life, right?
They're used to doing so much, and then now, you know, all the kids are grown, they're having their own families.
like, I mean, obviously we've never been through something similar, but I think we can definitely empathize with that. Just, I mean, turning 30, there's a lot of things that I'm not able to do that I used to do when I was younger as well, right? And this is probably, you know, 100 times that feeling, right? Like you said, they used to do so much for the family. They supported their entire families, right? And maybe due to age and health, there are certain things that they're not able to do nowadays. And, you know, the feeling of, you know, I guess uselessness in your mama's words, she must really feel it to her core. But I think that's where communication and family comes in, right? You got to show them the appreciation and show them that, hey, you know, these are kind of the fruits of your labor, right? That we're all experiencing. And I think that gives them a sense of pride and joy, right?
Totally. That's a great segue into the next clip that I want to show you. And this is the one that you were saying was very influential for you. So I want to hear your thoughts, Jacky, after we watch this one. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. 係啊，同我
好多謝你同佢分享你嘅故事啊，你嘅經歷。
Yeah, it's very it's very important to me and to the family.
冇關事，冇關事。阿嫲又都，你又多謝阿嫲，阿嫲都又真係多謝。多謝你重點，有時你問阿嫲講出阿嫲嘅心情，講出個困難，點止氣，點止耐，點止字，係咁困難俾你哋識，你就識得係細聲係重點嚟㗎。我覺得你先至係問阿嫲嗰啲，把阿嫲講俾你聽，你冇問阿嫲冇講，講親咪識合你聽唔合聽係咁樣，你冇講。即係今日係咁樣話口語，真係有一個諗作，有一個話個提醒，諗翻去舊時識啲老人家重點。我識你係有一隻個頭腦諗作，好好正嘅發展。阿嫲就會講俾你聽。有其他冇識啊？阿嫲乜嘢㗎？希望問阿嫲點講啫，仲要係得你問阿嫲講啫，真係得你問阿嫲講啫。
That moment got me so bad. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, so what was your experience going through that moment?
I mean, even when I was live translating that moment, right, I was tearing up when that happened, right? Because obviously, you know, there are things that, you know, grandchildren are very thankful for, right? For their grandparents, all the things that they've done, you know, the life that you have, right? Some part you owe it to your grandparents, right? I just didn't expect her to be so thankful, right, for the opportunity to tell her story, which, you know, it means that she had this yearning to tell her own stories, her own struggles, right? But maybe there was no good opportunity, right, for that to have happened yet. And I felt so proud, or just it felt so great to be a part of that moment, to be a part of that opportunity where she had the chance to tell her story, and it gave her more, you know, a sense of peace, a peace of mind, I hope.
Yeah. Julian, this was our first shoot that we had, the first one, and I remember we were at my parents' house, and you had even like set up a light outside of the house. We had rice bags, just the warmth of the lighting. What was your thought going into the filming of these episodes?
You know, we had talked about kind of what the vision of the, you know, storyboard would look like for this, and we wanted to bring in a warmth and, you know, hominess, coziness, and comfortable place for, you know, these really deep conversations. And I wanted the photography to reflect that. I wanted the lighting to be, you know, soft and inviting. For this particular scene, I wanted it to feel like a kind of like a sunset kind of a feeling. So I had the light coming through the window and basically just casting this sunshine on the wall there, and basically had like a C-stand like 20 feet in the air. And, you know, we were traveling and I didn't have the right sandbags, but I figured, you know, we're going to an Asian household, there's got to be rice bags. So we had these 2 big rice bags, like
insert photo of the setup here.
And like a wheel chalk underneath because it was on like a slant and everything, but it worked, it didn't fall over.
So the next episode that we did after that, it was actually the same day. just in the afternoon was Joe and Uncle Tom. So Joe and Uncle Tom are a close family friend of my parents, and Joe's around the same age as me. I don't know if you guys know this. Joe and I like didn't know that our parents knew each other for a really long time. After I had released an episode or two on the podcast, I did an episode with my mom, and it said Tanya Li, and he was like, oh, I know Tanya. Yeah, I used to go to her house all the time when I was a kid, and I was like, she's my mom. I was like, that's my mom. And then I go and I ask my mom, and I'm like, do you know who Joe Thung is? And she's like, oh yeah, like that's Uncle Tom's son. And so it was like just a very backwards way of finally meeting after our families have known each other for such a long time. And so I remember when we did the coffee chat, because Uncle Tom seemingly is very stoic, a little quiet.
More reserved.
Yeah, more reserved. And so this particular episode really surprised me. So let's get into a few of the clips.
I guess one thing that I would have wanted to say was that it was sad to see other kids have their parents around. Yeah.
細個嗰陣，係咯，佢有時候會
有
啲傷心咯，即係會因為 Uncle Tom 要成日做嘢啊嘛，咁佢有時候會見到其他細路仔，佢爹哋媽咪陪住佢哋嗰陣，佢會好掛住你咯，佢會有啲傷心。
都冇辦法㗎。嗰陣時間係要做嘢嗰時要。
Oh man. I mean, you know, I had to exit the room because I was like crying so hard during this episode. I thought it was really vulnerable to say that, and Uncle Tom's reaction, I felt like I saw a moment of a lot of like emotion come up and then quickly suppressed it.
It's just so, I feel like it's a very classic relationship, right? I guess in our culture. And there's no blame anywhere. I think Uncle Tom, when he was raising Joe, he was loving him the best way he knew how, right? Which was trying his best to provide things that he never had growing up.
And he was doing everything. Like the reason why he was working so much was to provide.
Exactly.
You know?
Similar sentiments to Joe. You know, when I grew up, very appreciative of all the things that my parents done for me, but also would have loved to have more time, right? But you know, these are sacrifices that these parents had to make, right? And having financial security was a little more important, right? Because they've been through times where they didn't have financial security, and that was their nightmare, right? And their nightmare was not being able to provide for the kids, and that's why they work so hard.
And I think it ties into the whole Asian dysphoria as well. Of, we grew up here, and we compare ourselves to our friends, and their parents have all this time to go camping with them, and spend time with them, and take them to sporting things, and we just didn't have that. If unless you were very lucky, but we couldn't help but compare and be like, oh, but Billy's parents are home all the time, and they're so loving.
When you're young, you can't cognitively process, especially with Joe and I, like we grew up on Vancouver Island, right? So we're around like a lot of Caucasian people and families, and so yeah. Pause for train. Yep. Pause for train.
We're right next to the train tracks, so that's what you're hearing right now. And there's helicopters going by.
Yeah. Okay, let's cut to the next.
阿 Jo 都問完佢想問嘅啲問題，咁 Uncle 有冇嘢係想同阿 Jo 講咧？
咁冇咩想知嘅，以後我想問你，我想問你，我啲個老豆做得好冇啊？
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Fuck, that was a good one. Shoot. 揀嚟好啊？ Yeah. Shoot. Yeah, I think that was it. 好啊，揀嚟好啊。Goodness gracious.
Nhiều cá sôi à?
Yeah. Too much.
Cá để sôi lại.
We need to add some water in here. Just gonna pour some water into here. Wow. Oh.
Hổ mày tao nói.
Is there anything you want
Yeah.
to say about
Ugh.
like you want Jacky to?
Dạ, hổ mày tao nói em ho.
Yeah, so you guys are good dad.
Yeah. Guess the only thing I would want to say or be able to translate and say is I don't like I feel like I've said this before, but I don't know if I've said this to like the same extent. I don't know how to word this to like I would want to say to like thank you for all the opportunities that I've had.
Cái là chuyện sắp rồi.
Yeah, I know. I think that's the only thing I want translated.
Okay là.
We're just gonna.
Joe 話過咗同你講，佢好多謝你，俾到咁多機會，俾到咁多出路俾佢，但佢係加拿大。
This is just kind of silly for me.
Yeah, you could tell Uncle Tom was holding back,
Yeah.
trying to hold back the tears, but it overboiled and it came out. Yeah.
I mean, I just thought it was so interesting. Yeah, Uncle Tom worked so hard his whole life, right? And the only question that he had was still, in Joe's eyes, whether he was a good dad or not.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that was obviously had a really big, importance to him.
What makes Jacky an incredible translator is that he's not just translating word for word. He's translating like the underlying feelings and emotions cross-generationally and cross-culturally, because you have the knowledge of both sides. And so even in the way that you translate, like for this, it wasn't exactly what Joe said, but I think you knew right in the moment how to say it in a way where Uncle Tom really actually understood what he was trying to get at.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just trying my best, right, to capture the emotions. And sometimes when you're even translating word for word, it may seem cold, right, if you don't have the right tone. So I try to emulate the tone that they had, and what are they really trying to say, right?
Yeah.
And part of it is like, we're not really trying to make a show here. I know for us, the core purpose is to kind of facilitate sometimes a much needed conversation between generations, right? Just helping them vocalize these feelings that they may have had and wasn't able to get across, right? That's the purpose, right? And so you try to let these emotions flow.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing.
Totally couldn't agree more. Like the context, the emotion really came through, and you could tell that both people. It's not like they were talking to an AI generated translation. It was like, wow, there's this other almost third party family member who understands everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's move on to the next episode. So the next one that we did was with my cousin Jeannie and her dad. That one, I know for a fact that they had never actually sat down and had like an intentional conversation. And so I pulled a few of the moments, and really just a few because there are so many moments in that episode that I love. The first one was him talking about one of his favorite moments or favorite memories of Jeannie speaking Vietnamese for the first time, and he's explaining like why that means so much to him, and I just found that so moving. So.
And later, when you about 6, the second happy, when you spoke Vietnamese with me. At that time, she can sing Vietnamese song too. Yeah, we sing together. Yeah, because at that time you spoke Vietnamese very good. the one I love the most. Because my English is limited, my Chinese is limited too. So just only the language I can like understand, I can talk with you, like doesn't matter what subject or what topic or whatever. So that's why I feel more confident then, right? So English, sometimes, yeah, I couldn't, yeah, tell her like everything I want. Like Vietnamese is different, right?
I feel like that touches on the distance that I feel between like me and my grandparents. I never really got to know their personalities because I couldn't fully like talk with them, right? It's really just like, have you eaten yet? And like all that stuff. And so, yeah, that was a really beautiful moment for me. What did you guys think?
Something that I've learned actually throughout this project. A lot of times with these relationships, there's an invisible barrier, right? Which is the language. And I think Uncle expressed it very well. He couldn't express everything that he wanted to, right? All the emotions, the love that he had, because he didn't have the full command of the English language.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why he was so full of joy when Jeannie could speak Vietnamese to him, because then he could tell her everything that he's ever wanted to.
Yeah.
And I think it's not doable. You know, it takes more time to maybe sit down and have that intentional conversation to get all your feelings across. It's not, I don't want the message to be, oh, there's always going to be this barrier. No, it's just, you know, with time, the barrier gets chipped away.
Yeah.
Right, that's my thought. But you just need to be more intentional with the conversations.
Yeah, I think that was one of the strengths of this project specifically, is that we broke that barrier, right, with your translation. Because I think so many of us and, you know, people that are in similar boats, like, they wish they could have these conversations with their parents or grandparents or, you know, but it is a barrier. And, you know, with being vulnerable, like not having the right words is already like, you know, just a huge step.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I really wanted to get out of this project, was to show people like, hey, there are ways that you can, you know, find a Jacky and, you know, have this safe
Book 'em
space
out.
and,
Everybody.
and have these deep conversations that, like, you know, I think, you know, everyone in these episodes will look back one day and be like, I'm so glad we did this.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
that's the hope, right? Yeah, for sure. Okay, the next part that I really liked from this was at the end, you know, he talks about, I've always had so many questions for Jeannie, you know, ever since she was 6 years old. Like, yeah, one of my favorite moments.
I try to make her happier. So that's why in my mind, I got so many questions for her from she 6 years old, and when she 18, and when she 30, I'm always got so many questions. But it's really hard for like to ask, right? The answer, of course, sometimes the answer never make you happy. So that means I wait till this way now. Yeah, when everything they check it out, and we can, yeah, we can ask her. Right? I want to ask you or not, right? But they in personally, yeah, that always they want to ask you like, what you think about now, how about living, yeah, how you feel in your love life, and yeah, how, yeah, everything. But between father and daughter, those questions is really hard to ask. You understand that? Yeah, so that's why, yeah, just only question I can ask how you living right now and how you feel right now. That sort of question. You know what I mean, right?
I wish I had this mindset when we were all younger.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Honestly, there's sometimes my dad just talking, maybe I'm just 38 now, instead for 63. So I can enjoy or we do anything for you guys. I want to. Because right now they too late for something, right?
After I talked to Jeannie, like, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? And like, all throughout her childhood, she didn't really talk to her dad about personal things. And as a child, she took that more as like, oh, he's not interested. He's doing his own thing. He doesn't really care. And so she said, hearing him say, like, I've always had all these questions for you, was kind of this overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, he did want to talk to me. He was interested. Like, he was thinking about me. And like all of these years, I've been thinking that he wasn't interested, you know? And so that was like a really emotional moment for Jeannie.
I didn't know Jeannie until this weekend. And so, you know, I could feel that there was a lot of trials and tribulations that she had gone through. And, you know, as a parent, of course, you're looking out for your child, but there's so many things that you can't, you know, step in and try to manage, but you want to be there and support. But that's why this moment was so special, that it's like, wow, he did care. And yeah.
And I hope, you know, the message for all the younger viewers out there is that, you know, we don't have to wait until your kids are older to have these types of conversations, right? Like, we have to learn from the experiences of our parents, right? You know, they wanted to ask, but they felt it was hard, right? And we're here to show that it's actually not that hard, right? And you can start having these types of, you know, deep communications when your kids are younger, right? And it becomes a very natural thing to do, right? You know, why not? You both want it, right? Why make it so difficult?
And it's one of those things that it starts off awkward, you know, because it's like, we don't do this, we don't have open conversation, we don't say I love you, like, we don't touch each other, you know. But once you get past that, it really opens the door, I think.
Well, they probably, our parents never had that from their parents, right? So they're trying to figure it out as they go. And
exactly.
We're like,
exactly.
But, you know.
I also just wanted to talk about the music. So a friend of mine, Derek, he did all of the music composition for the series, and he really went above and beyond. And I just think he really nailed it. Like, all of these emotional moments would not be the same without the music. So yeah, incredible, incredible. The next one that we did was my brother and my maternal grandma. So they sat down and had a conversation, and although my brother and I are actually fairly close to my grandma, we still hadn't had the opportunity to sit down with her with a translator and really like get to know her personality. We knew that she was always like a really strong woman. She is very resilient and she loves the family so much. I think what this session really showed me was the depth of that. So let's go through a few of those clips.
一到香港啲人佢話：你俾個細女俾我啦，我俾錢你。我話你冇同我講錢，我唔會賣我啲仔女㗎。就算我窮或者我死，我都係攬住一齊死。我話我唔會賣係咁樣。
I immediately like start crying into that one. I didn't know that. That people would want to buy children.
Yeah.
Like, I heard of it, but I guess it felt so foreign to me. Right. And to see how my family is, I'm like, of course she would never.
Yeah, I think it's also, you know, another common theme of, I think, Asian cultures is how morbid we are. Mm-hmm. It's like, if we're going to die, we're going to die together. I think, you know, it's very much like you cling on to family, and that's all that matters in our culture. And it's literal in this example.
The next clip that we're going to watch really highlights like and this is not unique to her, this is like all immigrant families, like you hear about them coming to Canada and they're working 4 jobs, you know, they're working morning all the way until night. And my grandma had talked about how she could have gone to school, but she had all of these kids to support, right? And so she decided that she wanted to work. She wanted to get her driver's license. And so hearing bits of that was really impactful for me. So.
收尾我諗，哎呀，咁即係好辛苦，咁我的起心肝嗱，我學揸車，你咁講話鬧我記得，你學得揸車，我個頭咧落地行，咁我你準備你個頭落地行，因為自己覺得好我唔知點講咧。 佢係咁講，我話點解我冇學得？我話我諗字，我淨係睇嘅。我話容易過你踩單車啦，係冇？你只要謹慎，你就唔會撞到人啦。你要即係守規矩，咁就冇事啊嘛。坐架車幾舒服，咁我就學。所以話做人咧，你要的起個心肝，即係我假設你同我朋友係咁，人哋係咁。 人哋係咁，點解我唔得呢？我應該我自己得，我決心我做，我就會。我冇叻過你，但係我起碼我都似你咁個環境咁好或者乜嘢，我自己諗係咁嘅。所以我去做工都係，我係少人工，但係我做多 job， 我做4份工，我而家老大，咁我都揾夠好似你多人工一樣喎，係嘛？ 因為我唔識煮嘛，我做 clean 啊乜嘢我都做。
I wanted Jacky to talk a bit more about the translation behind it. Like, did she feel offended by the fact that people were like looking down on her, or was it more out of spite, or is she just like that type of person, motivated?
I think it's the type of person that she is, right? It wasn't so much that, I don't know, there was spite, right? But it's more so the idea, right, of the thought of why not me, right? Why?
Yeah.
Right? Like who are you to limit my capabilities?
Yeah.
Right? And I think, I don't know, is this a common trait amongst your family, or is it just amongst a lot of the boat people, boat refugees, right? Because it already took a lot of resolve to get on those boats, right? Because it's honestly at that time, it's 50-50, right? You either make it or you don't, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that really shows with the people that we've interviewed or you know, had set up conversations with. They all had very strong resolves. All the idea of why not, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my best here and, you know, just try to provide, right? And one part of the conversation that we had with your grandma in there, that she also talks about her motivations. She's like, the stuff that other kids have, I want my kids to have too, right? And that's part of the reason why she works so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think your papa was like the definition of a tiger mom. Like, just whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. Like, 4 jobs, I'm going to do it.
The next episode that we did was with Cassandra and her dad. So Cassandra is a really close friend of one of my cousins, and I had never met anyone in her family until that day that we went over to meet her dad. And it was such a sweet episode. It was so nice to see, first of all, how close they already were. That was really, really special. One of the standout moments was when Cass was expressing to her dad, it seems like she had been thinking about it for a long time. It was from her university days where she needed to pay tuition, and she had asked her dad if he would be able to help, and he had to apologize to her and say, you know, I'm sorry, I can't, because at that time he was, you know, paying rent. He had to take care of all 3 of the kids and all of that. And so that was a really emotional moment. And so what I want to show is Cass's dad's response to that, why he felt like he needed to apologize and kind of what that meant to him.
Yeah, that's why I'm emotional.
因为
因為我點講啊？仔女係點講？佢有困難向你伸手，你俾唔到佢，哎呀，自己都感覺好唔舒服，所以都係點樣禮貌上都係講一句 sorry， 都係俾唔到，因為嗰時候又要養佢哋3個，又俾屋租又俾車，所以嗰時候唔知真係佢哋讀書都係靠佢哋自己，都係叻，所以我都好欣賞，知我呢個3個仔女都係叻，即係讀到大學。我做你呢個爹哋都係負責即係生你出嚟，養到你咁大，讀書都係靠你自己。爸爸讀書又唔係叻，點解我啲仔女咁叻？我已經係好驕傲㗎啦，已經係好開心，所以女加油。
Yeah, it was nice to see because, meeting them, having the pre-chat, and then going through the actual conversation, you could tell it was a family that was, that's broken the mold of stereotypical immigrant family, right? Where they were very already open and communicative. But even then, within, a relationship like that, there were still things that they were holding on to and still wanted an opportunity to get off their chest, right? And I'm glad that we kind of provided that opportunity for them to do this. And it was nice to see, some resolution to those feelings.
Yeah.
It was great to see how, you could tell that they had already a very good dialogue with each other. And even though it might have been, challenging to bring that up, like, you could just feel how much he wished he could have provided.
That's why I thought it was really nice for him to hear how upset Cassandra was that he was sorry at all, right? Because she already feels like he's done a lot for her. So I'm glad that he got to hear that.
And so the last episode that we did was between, I call them Grandma and Grandpa Li. They were one of the sponsor families that sponsored my mom's family over to Canada. And it's actually 45 years since they've been, is it?
Wild, yeah, 45 years is a while. Yeah, a long time. No.
You were like, nope, fact check. No, yeah, 45 years since they came over. And growing up, I had always seen Grandma and Grandpa Li as like literally Grandma and Grandpa. Like I used to call them when I was really young, I would say Mr. and Mrs. Li, and they were like, no. We're Grandma and Grandpa Li. We're not Mr. and Mrs. Li. And they've always been so close to our family. When it came time to do this series, I really wanted to take advantage of the fact that we had a translator because, my grandma especially never really had the opportunity to like talk with them, right? It's always like broken English and it's just her cooking them food and, exchanging gifts and stuff like that. And so this was a really special moment, not only for my family, but for all of the generations to come to really be able to document and see like who helped us get to where we are. So let's watch a couple clips from there. What was your motivation, I guess? Like, why did you want to sponsor families at that time?
I think it was, we were so blessed and, fairly secure in our my husband making a living for us. But when you have something and other people don't, it's really important that you share. And by sharing it, my gosh, we got more than we gave. They're such a fantastic family.
Because the government said, here are these people, and you could sponsor, you could pick. And I remember just being impressed that here was a family that they had mentioned that they were having difficulties finding sponsors for. And I thought, that's really the very best family, because I could see it, that the family was held together. And your feelings about your mother, it reinforces that I was right. This is a special family. There's a family unity, and even though their life is being significantly disrupted because of being forced out, we've got multiple generation here. We've got a grandmother, a mother and father, and children, and because of our beliefs how important the family unit is, said this is a great opportunity. And fortunately, we've been blessed that you've invited us to be a part of your family.
What was that episode translation like for you, Jacky?
Well, I mean, to be very honest, it was a little bit nerve-wracking because it was my first time being on camera during translations, right? So a little nerve-wracking because before, when I was off camera, there were still times where I could, react emotionally to the conversation that's ongoing, right? And have some moment to collect myself and do the translations properly, right? But during that, I had to really try to manage my emotions and trying to get the technical details correct. Having had conversations with your grandma before, right? And having had, multiple meals with her, right? Really chatting with her and getting to know her personally, it made it a lot easier. Guess it really just felt like, I was also part of the conversation,
Talking really to part of the family.
I think for the average viewer, they wouldn't even realize that you're not, a grandson at this point.
Yeah, I am.
Now you are. We're all part of the family now. So to close out kind of our conversation, I just want to ask you guys a few questions. For you, were there any specific moments that you remember where you thought or you felt like, this is why I'm doing this, or this is why this is important?
Every home that we went to, everyone was so thankful that we gave them this space, and I think you could feel some of their nervousness beforehand, but then after they're like, wow, thank you for doing this, and and I think with Joe and Tom, Uncle Tom, they probably have never had a lot of those kind of emotional situations, and my hope is that okay, this kind of started something for them, and they can maybe have that conversation again and feel safe to have that conversation.
So for all of us, what do you hope that people think or feel once they've watched?
I just hope that they find some of the feelings of these participants relatable, right? And through the conversations, I hope they feel heard. But most importantly, I hope they feel encouraged to have these types of conversations with the people that they care about in their lives. Encouraged because it's not as hard as you may think it is, and maybe it's not something that you should be putting off, right? Because it's actually really rewarding. At least, that's the feedback that we've gotten.
What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing would be, hopefully there's people out there who can't relate to this at all, and maybe they're from different cultures, and maybe they'll understand why we are the way that we are, and why our parents are the way that they are, and just have more of an understanding and see what it's like to not have the same kinds of openness with parents or grandparents.
I think that's a really good call out too, because I think from an outside point of view, especially if you're not in the culture, there's a lot of those stereotypes of why are they so strict, or why don't they allow their kids to do certain things, or why are they working so hard, right? It's a different perspective when you're actually in it and you're living it.
Hopefully it also provides a cultural context, right? Because a lot of the emotions, a lot of the feelings are the same, right? But how people choose to act on them is different, right? So hopefully it does provide that context.
So thank you so much for tuning in to this kind of behind the scenes episode of Holding Heritage Unspoken Stories. It will be available on TELUS Optik TV, the TELUS STORYHIVE YouTube channel, and you can visit holdingheritage.com for all of the information and all of the links to be able to find it.